Welcome to Reparations Conversations. The Taylors talk white supremacy, reparations, and the church. You may have seen Becca and I posting about Reparations Now NWA. Reparations Now NWA is an invitation to support Black Christian leadership in Northwest Arkansas to sponsor a fellow from NWA with the Witness Foundation as an expression of repentance and reparation for the sin of white supremacy.
So we are hoping to raise $50,000 by February 15th of 2021, and that will go to sponsor a fellow from Northwest Arkansas. And then we would also raise in the next year after that an additional $50,000. So it would be 2 years where a fellow would be supported by a total of $100,000, which is pretty amazing. We're asking local churches and our friends to give.
So between now and February 15th, Becca and I decided to talk to some friends about white supremacy, reparations, and the church. Our understanding of these issues is based primarily on the book Reparations by Quan Thompson. So today we wanted to talk about the role of white people in Black reparations and the essence of racism. So let's start by talking about the role of white people. This picture was taken during the Memphis sanitation strike in 1968. We've included it because it shows the position we hope to take as white people. King described this position in his book, Where Do We Go From Here? He wrote, "White people must see that the Negro needs not only love, but also justice. It is not enough to say we love Negroes, we have many Negro friends. White people must demand justice for Negroes. Love that does not satisfy justice is no love at all." King also wrote, "White people must be prepared to accept a transformation of their role. Whereas it was once a primary and spokesman role, it must now become a secondary and supportive role. This is the position we hope to take as white people making a case for Black reparations."
So today we are going to have a conversation with, a brief conversation, but a conversation with our friends Daniel and Cynthia Ngeuya. We have known them for a while now, have become really close over the last few years, and we just wouldn't be the same people or the same family without them. And so we're just really grateful for them and excited to have this conversation. To let you know a little bit about them, Daniel works at Harvest Group, which Will also works there. He is a deacon at Christ Community Church. He studied agriculture at the U of A and business at John Brown University. Yep. Daniel, is there anything else I should share about you? No? Okay, moving on. And then Ren is a member of the cultural engagement team at Christ Community, and she studied social work at the University of Arkansas. She is also a coffee professional, has taught me a lot. You guys can go to her Instagram. We should give you that handle somewhere in this video, and you can follow her and learn more about coffee. But anyways, we all live in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Okay, so a question we wanted to ask of Daniel and Ren is, what is the essence of racism? What is it? And before we get their perspective, we wanted to share from Reparations by Quan Thompson. So before we must correctly understand the problem of racism before we try to solve it. If we misunderstand the problem, we may not make it better and we may make it worse. So Quan Thompson defined the essence of racism in America as cultural brokenness. In America, racism is an individual problem that requires repentance, and an interpersonal problem that requires reconciliation, and an institutional problem that requires reform, and ultimately a cultural problem that requires reparation. So we believe that white Christians need to change our perspective. In The Color of Compromise, Jamar Tisby writes that most white Christians misunderstand the problem of racism. We understand racism as an individual or an interpersonal problem, but not as an institutional or cultural problem. Tisby writes that white Christians need to reconsider racial reconciliation, claiming it is important, but insufficient to get us from here to equality. So Daniel and Ren, the question for you is, what do you think about the essence of racism? And what do you want our white brothers and sisters to know?
Go first.
Yeah. When I think about the essence of racism, they were going back and forth on what exactly the word means. I mean, we looked up the definition, but I'm sticking to what I feel. And that is like the energy around racism, what's fueling it, and why it's been able to survive so long in this country. And I mean, a lot of it is what Quan mentioned. It's not an individual issue, it's an institutional issue. And I think that what I want people to know and remember and not forget is that it's this greed for power and money by white people that like fertilizes the soil of this land. And like we have to start over. We talk about broken systems a lot, and I'm like, they're not broken. They work perfectly the way that they were designed. And so I just don't want people to think like the intentions were always good, as like we're gonna support everybody. When this country was founded, it was never intended to support people like me. So we have to completely change our thinking in the way that it's run, not just, try to fix what's there. We just have to start over. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. And I think it does look a lot like a power shift, something of which King mentioned. Like, you have to be ready to give up your position as white people if you really want to see change in your community and in this country. I don't really know if I still answered the question, but that is how I feel when I hear about racism in this country.
Thank you, Ren.
Wow.
Daniel, how about you? What do you think?
Man, I think she nailed it. When you mentioned Dr. King's quote, I started thinking, what does it really look like for our white brothers and sisters to take a step back and let Black brothers and sisters kind of take the forefront, and I think that's the hard part about racism, right? It's hard for our white brothers and sisters to accept that it's okay and it's important to have Black people lead our community, lead our church, and lead change in this country. So I think that's probably, to me, where things lies. That's the essence of racism to me. And to my white brothers and sisters is listen. Acknowledge that we need more Black people to lead, and we need the presence of Black people in our community, and just take the first step by acknowledging that, and that will probably go a long way.
I would also add, acknowledge that you have benefited from a system that is founded on white supremacy, and not get so tight when you hear the word, because I mean, it's a shocking word, and there's so much that goes behind it. And it feels like, well, I'm like not outright out in the streets planning my day around harassing Black people, but you do benefit from a system that does that. And I mean, we'll get into it more in this presentation, but white supremacy is just so much more than the KKK. And just acknowledging in the areas of your life where that's more prevalent, and not shying away from it or not wanting to talk about it because it's hard. Just like talk about it, walk up to it, face it, and work on how to get past it. And this is a part of that. So if you truly don't want to benefit from a white supremacy system, or you want to change what that looks like, this is a great place to start, where you put your money where your mouth is and say, I want to see true change in my community, in my church, in my family. My kids will look different than I look now because of the way I've viewed white supremacy and racism, not in this country, but like in your church, in your family, and in your own self. And that's the last thing I have to say about that.
And that was so good. I was like, music needs to be like starting in the background because she's preaching. Oregon. That's awesome.
Well, Daniel and Ren, thank you so much. We really appreciate you all and you all being with us today. As Ren mentioned, we'll talk more next time about white supremacy, so tune back in. But that's it for today. Please visit reparationsnowinwa.com to continue the conversation. Thank y'all.